And so I just would like to welcome everyone today to our summer guest speaker, Dr. Catherine Hansen. And what a privilege it is to have someone of her caliber speaking to us today. And we're so grateful to have her. I'm not going to introduce her because she has such an amazing resume and biography that I will let her introduce herself. But we do just want to remind you that the session is being recorded. Please note that the participant panels and the chat panels will not be a part of the final recording, so there will be some confidentiality in that regard. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass the ball over to Dr. Hansen. And Dr. Hansen, you may begin.
Hello, and thank you, Joanna, for that tutorial and all of that welcoming information. And can you hear me okay?
We can. It looks like your face might be a little frozen with the video camera. So if that's the case, you can just turn off the camera and then turn it back on if you'd like.
Okay, let me try. Go. So let me know if my face is frozen again, because it's probably frozen in a weird position if that's the case. But I just want to say welcome. I am so grateful to be here and for the support of the Military Family Support US, Joanna, and I see Tammy there, and I'm sure several other of our participants. And it's just, I'm really, really grateful for all that all of you are doing globally for military spouses, and in turn for our military personnel as well. I'm hoping and really wanting this session to be for everyone in attendance, and even for the people who are listening to the recording later, obviously. But it's really important to me that we make this about you. And as I've been in the U.S. for 10 years, I start to hear my own Canadian accent. So I just heard the abouts, so the outs and the abouts hopefully are familiar to some of you and maybe not so familiar to others. I'm here to talk about the Empowered Women's Circle and a little bit about what we are, but most importantly, it is my hope that I inspire some creative reflection on your part and a little bit of deep thought is kind of my goal. So on that note, as I do with every session with the Empowered Women's Circle, normally I would do an opening centering meditation. I won't go there right now, but I will ask you to just be really present and really focused on what we're doing here today. And your time is super, super precious. Everyone's time is really valuable. And for the sake of the time that you're giving to this process and the sake of any potential thoughts and insights that you come up with for your own life, and also to be respectful of the time that everyone here is devoting, I just ask you to take a moment to set aside all your tasks and to-dos. If you're driving, of course, that's not possible, but just setting aside everything, bringing yourself into this time that we have together. So chatting about the Empowered Women's Circle, but really asking you to be very, very present with the questions, and if possible, answering in the chat. And I know that we have the ability for you to raise your hand, and you've heard the little tutorial. We have the ability for you to talk as well. I even heard all your voices as Joanna was checking your audio. So I know that all that's going to be possible. So just really excited about your participation. We're the Empowered Women's Circle, and our slogan is to strengthen your body, elevate your mind, and nurture your soul. So ewcircle.com has all that information. Now, the joys of doing medicine in the U.S. is that I always show this slide. Hopefully, I never need to, but I'm not giving medical advice today. I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm happy to be here doing all of this, but I just want everyone to know, of course, you need your own doctor for medical advice, and I always show the don't sue me slide. Hopefully I never need to use it. So we're here to get together, we're here to get to know each other, and I know you have the ability to chat, because some of you have said hi already, hi back, and I know you have the ability to talk. So I'm really curious. I'd like to take a moment to find out where people are living, hometown, where you're living, where you're currently posted, anything kind of cool about you. Go ahead and post that for us. So Nobody's posting anything, I don't think, but go ahead and take a moment. Just let me know. Let me know you're there. Let me know you hear me. Let me know my face isn't frozen.
You're good. You're not frozen. So we've got Jody in Houston. Tammy is from Fredericton, but she now lives in BC.
Oh,
Migdalia is also from Houston.
awesome.
I'm from Ohio originally, but currently
Yeah.
in Halifax. And we've got Kaylin is with us from Maryland, but she's originally from Nova Scotia. She's one of our military family service.
Oh, via Ontario.
And let's see here. We've got Jennifer, who's originally from Montreal, but just moved to Colorado Springs this summer. And of course, we've got Heather there. I think she knows you, living in Houston. Indira from Toronto. Oh, gosh.
From Montreal, living in Ottawa.
So, a lot of places.
And Christine. Oh, met my husband in a live Zoom. Awesome. Okay, well, hello to everybody. Super, super glad that you could make it. And at Borden, I actually have family working in Borden. Linda's in Ottawa. You know, it's really exciting. I'm glad I did that because I was kind of curious who we had from the U.S. side and who we had from the Canadian side. So I show you this. I'll come back to more in the chat. So now you've given yourself away. I know you can all find the chat. Stephanie from Oklahoma, or in Oklahoma, but from New Brunswick. Excellent. I show you this slide simply as a way to take you back a little bit in time in terms of my heart to empower women. I think it's, you know, wanting to get to know each other, and would be nice if we were all sitting around, you know, having a social hour. But I spent a little bit of time in Africa, and I think that's kind of where it all began for me. I was a little burnt out in my residency and decided to go to Zimbabwe and do a little work there. And you can see me, I'm the only pale face in the room there. And it was in that time frame that I realized that my heart and soul was really in giving women a voice who didn't necessarily have a voice, helping to elevate women, and seeing so firsthand the rock that women are for their world around them. And hence, that's where the story began. At the same time, around the same time, this guy was growing into his spacesuit, learning to fly fighters, and I came back from that trip in Zimbabwe around the same time he was learning to fly fighter jets. I was I did a master's of public health at Johns Hopkins, thinking that my global outreach would be my future, and then my medical degree, of course. So who am I? Catherine Hansen, OBGYN, and I have also some specialty in menopause, which I think we'll chat a tiny bit about. But most importantly, the work with the Empowered Women Circle is helping women to step into their health, their vitality, their wellness, really an overall sense of well-being. I am from Hamilton, Ontario, and via Cold Lake, a long 7-year detour in Cold Lake, Alberta, to Houston. So we've been in Houston for 10 years, starting to feel a lot like a Houstonian, if that's possible for a Canadian to do. So what happened next? The rest is history, as I'm sure you're sort of all aware with that, and we thought the rest would be easy, but not so much. So we went on to have 3 kids inside of 18 months. On the left is the singleton. I had my boy in 04, and then I had the twins in 6. So all 3 under 18 months. I know that there's at least one of you in the crowd that has a baby. So having 1, 2, or 3 babies is incredibly difficult. I tried without avail to put them back on occasion. These are the twins, and I couldn't figure out how they could have fit inside me, and I wanted to see. And truth be told, it looks like they never did fit inside me. We had the 3 of them, and I think you can see by the dazed look. Now, Joanna did give me a tutorial on how to put an arrow. The dazed look in my husband's eyes, I think, makes it pretty clear that we went through a lot of time that seemed like we were in a blur. He has a little tagline, "Don't whistle while you pack," but for him, he was on his way a lot of the time, as I'm sure a lot of your spouses are, and busy doing what he does. I was busy learning how to put worms on hooks and be mom and dad to a lot of people. So I am noticing in the chat people do recognize that look. It is pretty amazing how tiring and exhausting it can be to have little ones, never mind traveling military spouse, 24/7 on call in a small town, 24/7 for 7 years on call as a GYN in a small town, and then all the other tasks that were going on at the time. So while he played around in an airplane doing fun things, sort of like space camp, as well as caving in Spain and living under the water in Florida, I was home taking kids out for breakfast, so I didn't have to clean up all the maple syrup mess all over the table. And these are when the kids were much younger, and I'm quite sure they'll be watching the video later. So introducing them, we have, oh, I can put an arrow here. We have Devin, my boy, Ashley, one of the twins, Caitlin, the other twin, and of course myself, a little bit less days looking because they're getting older. They're learning how to help mommy wash their own hair. I found that was the biggest milestone for having the girls, when they could just go wash their own hair and I could make dinner while they were doing so. So I have more up-to-date pictures on Facebook, and please connect with me to have a look at those pictures there. So I was having a wonderful time of my life, best life ever. You know, on the outside looked amazing, but I wasn't really in it. Truth be told, it was going by. It was quite a blur, and survival mode sort of became the mode that I was in. This is obviously out at a nice Mexican restaurant and sharing margaritas. Well, I'm not sure exactly what the kids were doing there. I became deeply inspired around this time because of all the women coming in the office who were sharing similar stories. Life was crazy. Life was chaotic. I'm, you know, in survival mode. And they would come in to the office and say to me, "Am I the only one?" And that was probably the most heart-wrenching for me, because we live in a world where we can have, be, and do anything we want, and yet a lot of times feeling unfulfilled, feeling overwhelmed, or even sometimes numb. And I have this firsthand experience, which a lot of people don't have, that I'm in an office where women are coming in with multiple and diverse concerns. And as a doctor, we call them complaints, but I hate to call them complaints. These were just, you know, really things that were happening that were taking people out of their lives and making it almost impossible for them to really find the joy and to be involved in the memory-making moments of their lives, looking externally for answers. And it became really, really obvious to me that a 15-minute clinical visit, which is basically what, you know, the healthcare system allows us, was not going to be the answer for these women. And in addition to that, also seeing how vitally important it is to have women at the table, and knowing that having women at the table, having women out there living healthy, happy, fit, vital, alive lives is really what is up-leveling for everybody. Women, as I said, are the rock. They're the center of their family. They're what keep, you know, everything in order in a lot of situations in their family. Now, I'm speaking in generalities, of course, and my work as an OBGYN is with women. So it's not that I'm leaving men out, but I think a lot of us will see that being the woman in the traditional family, we're carrying a lot. We're doing so much of the unpaid domestic work in addition to a lot of the paid outside the home work. So create your list, and here is a question for you for the chat. So get your fingers ready, because I really want us to have an opportunity to think about these questions together. And while the chat is confidential, your answers are helping me, and they're helping me serve and provide more of what women need in their lives. So I'll be happier when, as a society, we know we have more stuff, we have more opportunities than ever before, and yet we seem to be less happy. And this is one of the things that really struck me in my time in Africa, is that with very little, people could be very happy. And then we come back to this Western society where there's so much and so many opportunities, and yet we often walk around with this sense of feeling unfulfilled. And in the chat, I'm already seeing answers, thank you, from Joanna, but please let me know, why do you think this is generally, and not in every situation, but generally the case, that we know happiness is on the decline while prosperity is on the upside? So I'll just read Joanna's answer. I think because we're trying to fill our souls with material things when our souls aren't made up of material things. That's absolutely what I'm seeing in the office and in the women that I work with. Anybody else want to hazard a guess or give their input as to why? We're less connected to people around us. Busy doing. Yeah, and when Linda says we're always busy doing in quotation marks, as opposed to being, as opposed to sitting in our lives and experiencing the mindfulness of it, the presence of it. I asked you to come and be present in this time. You've carved out time to sit here and to be in this conversation, and it's something that you probably, I'm guessing, don't often do for yourself. And that just being in the moment, listening to the dialogue, sharing in this conversation is something that we so little do. And I can guarantee of the attendees we have here and of the people listening later, many of you are multitasking. I know, because I can tell you, I sign on to webinars all the time and I multitask. So take a breath, be in this space with us, and give some of these challenging questions some real reflection. So it's great because the chat is already kind of climbing up here, trying to be perfect and making sure we look perfect to the outside world. We do that. We so do that. And social media gives us a false perception about what others might be doing. And it's true. I mean, people on Facebook, if they're sharing vulnerably, oftentimes they're sharing because they've figured something out that they want to share. It's very rare that we, really see into people's lives, just like the little insight into your life, into my life that I gave you at the beginning of this presentation. Magdalia says we've been taught to work, work, work instead of really connecting, and to almost force our interactions as opposed to kind of just see how things unfold. And I am not blameless in these challenges as well. Social media can portray the best life for others and can create envy and jealousy for those who are viewing it. So true. Yeah, absolutely great comments. So, and I think we're also watching to see if anybody raises their hand, because I would, even love to have voices in the room. We tend not to take the time to appreciate and be proud of what we've accomplished. As Tammy says, yeah, looking in the rearview mirror. In our Empowered Women Circle, we emphasize a lot, looking in the rearview mirror, celebrating little successes, making sure we actually acknowledge how far we've come and what we've contributed already. So I don't know if I heard someone raise their hand or not, but we'll keep.
No, it's just a new attendee.
Oh, okay, welcome. Welcome to new attendees. This is great. You'll have to watch the recording for some of the fun and entertaining pictures that I've already shown. So you've already talked a little bit about, I'm going to go real deep here, but I do want to share that in the short time we're together, we need to carry this conversation on. It's so true that we're often living out of fear. And even if we don't acknowledge that it's fear that we're living out of, it's, as you describe in the chat, it's that we're trying to be something we're not. We're trying to look a certain way or act a certain way, or we have fear that there's not enough time. There's fear that there's not enough money, fear that we're not being perceived the way we want to be perceived, fear that we're not valuable or have enough credibility. And what we work in the Empowered Women Circle to understand is at a really deep level that there's so much pressure on a woman in today's world to live in that area of fear. And if we can transition that and we can start to be really grounding into living out of a sense of love, out of a sense of self-love, out of a sense of I'm enough, out of lack and out of scarcity, and into a sense of abundance. Really coming from that place, if we allow that grounding in love as opposed to fear, if we allow that to inform our decisions and our actions, then the life that we ultimately end up living and expressing is not only more fulfilling for us, but it raises the bar and it takes us to a bigger, better place, allowing us to have an even greater ripple into the circles that we touch, into our family for sure, and then of course our workplace and our friends and our contacts and all of the people we impact. And I ask, again, go ahead and send me some chat. What do you do when you need support? And of course, you have military family support right here at the ready for you, and with so many incredible resources. But in general, what do you do for support? And Jennifer answers, I don't have an answer. I've been wondering this myself, but I think she may have been referring to the last question. The last question we were asking about why there's less happiness even though there's more prosperity. What do you do for support? And, you know, we have several very powerful women and very brilliant minds at the table here today. Jody says, I call Tammy Kingston. I love it. It was so funny. Tammy's probably going to laugh at this. We had some military support people. I'm trying to, I apologize, I don't actually know their titles. We had them come and give us some discussion about some of the processes when we first moved here to Houston, how to fill out medical claims and update wills and those kinds of things. And one of them said to us, well, Tammy Kingston is one of these people that you can get a hold of. And my husband looked at her and said, do you mean the one that has 6 kids? How could we possibly call and ask her for help with negotiating some of our child care challenges when she has 6 kids? So I know that Tammy is a resource for a lot of people and does a fantastic job keeping us close from an outreach point of view. So I'm reading some of the answers. I'm reaching out to my friends, go for a walk, hiking, yeah, meditate, pray, call people I trust. That sounds very much like some of the things we talk about in the circle. And Tammy says she's always here. We are women. That's right, in capital. We are women. We are the rock, leaning on our friends. And I rely on myself. And when I'm really, I talk to my parents, my kids, my husband, the people around me, even my students. Others as my hubby, other spouses. Hey, Heather, that would be us for sure. So if, in my situation as a physician, as a provider, we live in a world that is the most obese, over-medicated, unwell, so sickly, unwell, and in fact, unhappy in terms of depression and suicide rates. We live in a world that is more of those things than it has ever been. And as a medical provider, it's shocking to me when people land in my office and in the Empowered Women Circle, we have these conversations. Where do you go to cope? What is it that creates a sense of happiness and fulfillment for you? All of the things that you've been answering. And if a woman lands in my office, then we have this conversation. But there are, and this little clip you're seeing on the slide from Medscape is from this morning. It's from this morning. So I went and I posted a little bit about this. A lot of people, a lot of women are turning to alternative complementary approaches to medicine. I love, they are deeply ingrained in what we do in the Empowered Women's Circle. But a lot of women are turning to things that may be unsafe, They are absolutely unproven, and there are many situations where women come in the office and they have tried prescriptions or even implantable devices, or they've tried alternative approaches that have very little credibility, and they don't know necessarily what they're getting, so women can't really be blamed for this. They're at an all-time low in terms of mental health and physical health, and if they're not getting in the right place or getting the right answers, there can be harm done. And I see it every day in my clinic where women are coming in after seeing, say, 4 or 5 or 6 multiple physicians, multiple providers, and they're not getting the answers they want. They're looking externally, as some of you have already alluded to. They're looking externally for answers. They're looking for a pill for every ill. And it really is the pressure of the society we live in that we think that that answer is going to be outside of us, and we think that there's a quick fix for everything. And yeah, and I'm seeing even questions in the chat that hormone supplementation is a real thing, and it's very prevalent, and I caution you, as an OBGYN, I have to do this little tangent here because I caution you that the answers are not necessarily available in a bottle. And yet, we do need to manage our stress because stress is linked to every possible health condition, cancer included, that we can talk about. So stress, if we were to describe it physiologically, leads to inflammation. Inflammation ultimately leads to chronic disease, and every chronic disease is on that list. So what would it take? And this is where the conversation gets really exciting. We always kind of go down before we come back up. But what would it take for women to get out of that story of, I need something external to fix this, I need a quick fix, I'm feeling pressured by society to be something I'm not, and to get on with playing their biggest game? Because women have the capacity to change the dynamic. Women bring very incredible, unique, soft skills, we call them. They bring an entirely different approach to the conversation, to any table that they're sitting around. And that is from the highest boardrooms to the kitchen table, you know, in your kitchen next door. We know that women bring nonviolent conflict resolution, they bring communication skills and compassion, and it's not that men don't. If you've ever met my husband, soft skills are one of his strengths. And we know that many men have the ability to nurture and express all of what we call soft skills. In fact, they have lots of university courses. We know that they're integrating soft skill development at Harvard and Columbia, to name a few. But women innately bring a different dynamic to the table. And we know leaders such as Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama have made it pretty clear that Western women, and that's us, are going to be the ones that change the world, that up-level the conversation, that elevate humanity. So it's nothing less than giving women a voice and changing the conversation that women are capable of. But right now, as I see it in the circles, in the patients that I see, and in a lot of the women that I connect with, they're holding themselves back by this pressure to be something that they're not, or this need for everything to be perfect before they raise their voice or make their voice heard. And oh, I think I'm hearing music. There we go.
Sorry, I muted her.
That's okay. It was kind of nice, actually. Yeah, women making space for women, and men learning to make space for women, absolutely. And we know that it's going to take all genders across the entire continuum of genders to elevate, but in terms of one of the things that we as women can do is to, in some ways, get out of our own way, and that is essentially what we're doing in having this conversation, starting on your on yourself and watching that ripple effect. So I'm going to ask you, I'm curious to hear the answers. What is inclusion? So for those of you who are still fully present and fully with us and thinking about some of this deep conversation, if I haven't lost you, define inclusion. It means something a little different to everybody, and I think this is an important piece of the conversation for us to be having. What does inclusion mean? So making space and giving voice to different people. Yeah.
Barb had said everyone and their collective and individual voices count.
Mm-hmm.
She just, it got sent accidentally privately to me.
Everyone, their individual and collective voices count. I love it. Being welcomed into a community, respecting difference of culture, ideas, and beliefs. Diversity is a fact. Inclusion is a choice. That's thought-provoking, yeah. Encompassing all peoples and ideas into my bubble. I love that. Into my bubble, obviously, into my community, right? Into my circle. Karen says, being invited to the party is diversity. Being invited to dance is inclusion. I love it. We'll quote you on that. Being accepted, accepting everyone, voices matter, making sure those in powerful positions give platforms to marginalized communities. So being brought in from the margins, yeah. Respect, listening, acceptance. I am so grateful for all of you and for those answers. I'll be hopefully copying some of that down. That is absolutely incredible conversation. Now we can feel equal but not connected, and we can feel equal but not necessarily included. So at this point, if you think about equality and women sort of fighting for equality, what is more important than equality? And I think that you have all sort of alluded to that. It's being asked to dance. So you can be viewed as equal, but not really have that sense of belonging to something, that sense of being brought in, like Magalia said, from the margins. Really valuable conversation. So go ahead and continue to add if something comes up for you as we're having this important conversation about inclusion and about equality and about equity. And if you haven't read Melinda Gates' book, The Moment of Lift, which is fairly recently published, I love how she brings this together into the importance of not just equality or not just equity, but community and having women together, because we raise the bar. Women need to meet, talk, organize, and lead so we can break down the walls and open the doors for everyone. So in 20 years, I have learned really well how to educate women, how to equip women, even how to empower women. But what's become really obvious to me is that it's this sense of community, of belonging, of having a place to bring your voice and have your voice heard, that not only elevates the woman and opens all kinds of possibilities and opportunities and confidence for her individually, but as you've already suggested, collectively, we are stronger. So that's where the Empowered Women Circle was birthed from this deep understanding that it's not just helping women individually, and it's not just helping women necessarily collectively, but it's bringing them together so that they can create uplift for each other. We are an inclusive group extending love and support to anyone who shows up fully in their power, out of victimization, and ready to really make a go at their biggest life. So that is basically who we are. And I want to give you just a sort of tiny brief outline of how we do that so that you have a sort of an understanding. And I'm seeing in the chat, I don't need people to agree with me, but I want to feel like they hear me. And that is so true, Joanna, because probably the most impactful conversations I've had with patients is where I've asked them a question and they've come back to me. Usually there's some tears in the room, but they've come back to me with that, you actually hear me. And it saddens me that they haven't yet been heard after all of the visits and all the conversations they've had with other women, that just being heard is rare in the conversations we're having with each other. So I'm imploring you to be present and mindful in those conversations, as I can tell from the chat that most of you already are, and really raising the bar on how we create space for others in our lives. So this is the graphic that kind of walks us through when women come in, to the circle. And as you can tell from my conversation, my patients are always invited into the circle because of 15, 20, actually I do long clinic visits now. They're probably closer to 45 minutes to an hour clinic visits, but that's been a long time coming. They're always invited into the circle because one visit is never enough. You can never have a woman that you've educated and equipped and empowered, and then she kind of walks away from the visit and she gets lost in her life. And the Empowered Women's Circle is a way for women to not get lost back into the chaos of their life, but to actually remain focused on the priorities and the vision at hand and what really matters for her at the moment. So it's not always physical wellness. It's not always physical concerns. It's not always something physical that we are here to fix, let's say, although a lot of times as a doctor, that's what I hear first. We know that the mind, body, soul is so deeply integrated. It's inseparable. And in the Empowered Women's Circle, it's about reclaiming life on your terms and figuring out, where do I focus now? What is the vision now? It may be weight loss. It may be healing a certain health condition. It may be healing a marriage. It may be working on career progression. It may be a certain or specific project. But whatever it is that a woman who comes into the circle that is sharing in that collective rising, whatever she's ready to focus on is what we're ready to support her on. And we always start. The World Health Organization has a really good way of saying that we're not just the physical, we're the mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relational, all of those things together. And so this wellness wheel, or all of the above, that's right, so women can come in to work on all of this. But we know that there's always an area that is ripe and in season, and is the area of life that basically acts as a catalyst for the rest. So this is when women get overwhelmed. And I know we have some people here who have done this wellness wheel work with us and in the circle. And it can be very overwhelming to look at it all and go, well, I need a little help here, and I need a little help here and here and here and here. And that's what the beauty is of going through this blossoming process with the Empowered Women's Circle, is that we step into a practice, an experiential practice that allows us to determine, not necessarily from our mind, but allows us to determine through that practice that we do together, which area of life is the one that is ready and ripe for picking, the low-hanging fruit, let's say, for right here, right now. And if I step into that, the next steps will unfold very, very naturally as they should. And it's not about doing it all, and it's not about necessarily scolding yourself because you get, say, a low score in some of these areas. It's about really sitting with yourself and thinking, what do I feel most inspired? What do I most deeply yearn for right now? And I can tell you that there's almost always a physical health concern, but it's shocking how many times women will come in and say, you know, I really thought I needed to work on, say, losing X number of pounds, but what it turns out I need to do is, and I need to, for example, heal this relationship over here, or I need to declutter my house because I can't even think in these spaces, or I need to focus on having my voice heard at work because I feel like I'm not really adding the value, I'm not really being heard to add the value that I know I can add to this particular project. So it's an experience, and it's not easy to do because we'll often get in our head and we'll think, oh, well, I definitely need to exercise more and eat healthier, and I need to sleep better, and we all need to do those things, but they may not be, for everybody, the first step. And I'll never forget the time I sat with a patient who'd come in with specific menopausal health concerns, which I see a lot. And after talking with her for a while, I realized she was sort of like a sailboat sort of flapping around in the breeze. And I said to her, what's your purpose in life? What do you sense to be the reason you're here? And she took a step back and she, said, nobody's ever asked me that. And such a powerful thing for her to think about. And I really challenge us all to acknowledge that it may not be just one purpose, but there's something that's yearning. We have a yearning. There's something that's inside of us that is naturally ready to unfold. And I don't know what the stages are that necessarily create that sense of yearning for us, because not everybody can hear those messages when they start to come up. I think it may be, at various stages of life. When people first get married, I hear a lot of this, who am I now in this marriage? I have to redefine my identity. When people have a baby, I know that was true for me. There was a whole loss of who I was as a person as I tried to transition into becoming a mother. When people go through career transition, when people go through menopause is another huge area. There's a lot of hormone explanations for why that's the case in the female brain. And it's never really clear why, but for some people at some time, or for most people at some time in their life, they kind of awaken to a sense that there's more for me. And life's short, and it's time to really get on with it. So I ask you, if not now, when? These are the deep questions and experiences that we work through with the Empowered Women Circle. So I'm, again, looking for you. Empty nest, yes, that's another huge transition in life when women, especially women, men too, but especially women, sit with, this was my purpose. This was my priority for so many years and so many decades, and now I have so much extra space. And a lot of women will drop into a sense of loneliness or boredom, whereas it really is a time of potential and possibility. So do you sense an unrealized potential? So we get yup. So people, you sense an unrealized potential. So I guess that is a yes-no question. If you sense an unrealized potential, then it's absolutely time for you to tap into that and just listen, because the answers are always there when you spend that time reflecting. And for you to answer for me, what has provided the greatest element of success on your journey? I can tell from the chat that all of you have spent a little time thinking about this, and it's very likely that your place as military spouses, as people who have very high power spouses, or trying to keep up with partners who are on the move, or trying to be independently and autonomously on your own move. What has provided the greatest element of success on your journey? And I ask because I know that even in the small number of people we have around the table right now, and hopefully large number of people listening to the recording later, that we can provide that support for each other. So some of these answers are fantastic. Forgiveness, yes, and grit. And grit meaning to Christine, guts, resilience, integrity, and tenacity. Beautiful. And Jody, I'm trying to be careful not to read anything that somebody doesn't want me to read, but as a successful nurse, following my passion in OB and infertility, marrying into the military, I married the military. I had to reread that. And I had to put my career on hold and get whatever nursing job I could at various postings. Now I'm a mom, and I feel like my identity is being a wife and a mom. Absolutely. And when we can become content with the roles that we carry, then that's one thing, and that is that place of acceptance and that grounding into that sense of self-love and that feeling valued in those roles is so, so vital. And not forgetting to listen to the messages as they come up that that we can do whatever we want and that we have available to us basically unlimited potential, and that if as women, we want to be doing those traditional roles of wife and mother, spouse, partner, and mother, then how beautiful that is. And if we want to be adding to those roles other deeper yearnings and potentials, that we don't hold ourselves back by the busyness of the work that has to be done to hold our families together. And I think it's really valuable for us to realize that Melinda Gates calls it unpaid domestic work, that the unpaid domestic work that women are doing globally really ties up a lot of our bandwidth and keeps us, very, very busy. And if there's internal messages that are saying, my greatest gift or my greatest expression of my unique talents in this world would be to, I don't know, write a book or teach a class or something like that, that we listen to those messages and that we find a way to share in that work that needs to be done to keep a very deeply connected and bonded family, which is possible if either the man or the woman are leading the family and holding them together. Being the pillar of my family, absolutely. And we are, as I said, the rock. Letting go is Jennifer's greatest element of success, being able to let go, trusting that everything will be okay, accepting that my role will change multiple times over my life, and that each role will bring different challenges. So acceptance, I hear the acceptance a lot, trust and have faith. And one of the very first military parties that I went to in Cold Lake when I was first being integrated as a military spouse, I remember walking in and there was a woman there sort of standing at the buffet table, and I introduced myself. Hello, how are you? And I asked her, what do you do? Do you stay home? Do you work? And she said, well, I'm an academic trapped in a military spouse's body. And I cannot remember her name, or I might reach out and contact her because it took me a while, but I finally understood what she was saying. There's a lot of times where we can literally feel like we've had to reinvent and blossom where we're planted. And how beautiful it is that we're able to do that and that we're able to be all that we need to be in those situations. If at any point you're feeling like, oh, this is kind of something I'd like to explore, the Empowered Women's Circle takes all the elements necessary for us to acknowledge and sense into those potentials that are coming up for us at whatever stage of life it happens to be, and expressing them in a very tangible way through a very structured and stepwise process. So we have seedlings, we have flower buds, we have flower blossoms, and it really is a beautiful way to bring community together and to allow us each to reflect internally on our individual goals and visions, and then collectively, as I said, to create that uplift for each other. We have lots of tools and resources. This is a tracker, it's called a garden plot tracker, that we all basically walk through as initial steps along with that wellness wheel that I showed you as a way of saying, this is where my life's vision is for me right now. And I'm sure you can imagine there's short-term, medium-term, long-term visions, but what we work on together are the short-term initially, so that we can go back and celebrate successes and see that we've made some real forward momentum toward reaching a specific vision. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can be, you know, very, very small. We've had some women in our group really literally say, I'm just going to declutter my house. And as they start to declutter their house, they realize they also want to do other huge, massive, big things. I don't think the person I'm about to reference is here, and I'm sure she would share if she was. But we had one woman who started decluttering her home and ultimately decided that she wanted to walk the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And it only took her a little bit of decluttering her home before she shifted gears and realized that that was on the horizon for her. Massive undertaking, but we're getting up and under her and really helping support her journey, because when she makes it through that, I think it's like 300-kilometer walk, how incredible it's going to be for us to celebrate with her. Yeah, Migdalia is sharing that as an Empowered Women Circle member, the tracker has been an incredible tool. And this is a journal, a workbook journaling guide, and I just share it with you because it's got all the tools and resources in it, and it is available on our website. Now, going over there and getting this workbook is not necessarily going to get you on the track and the journey toward that vision, but everything is in there. And I think that you're hearing loud and clear that the sense of community, the support, the nurturing, the accountability is all the more important than the actual tools. But tools are in this workbook if it's something that you want to explore in greater detail. And we have a closed Facebook group, which we're happy to invite you into once you become part of the Empowered Women Circle, because it's here that we can really share in each other's challenges and get up under each other when we need those pieces of support. And in this garden together is really where the magic and the synchronicities start to happen. So my goal and my hope for us is that the questions that I've asked you have really inspired some reflection and created some real creative thinking for you, and that this has been, you know, if nothing else, an opportunity for you to think about some questions that you wouldn't otherwise have thought about as you go about your busy day, supporting your family and wearing your many hats that you wear as military spouses and as women in our community, and to empower each and every one of you that we all have a legacy to leave. And if you haven't spent any time kind of journaling or writing or sharing with a friend, the legacy that you are leaving with what you're currently doing, or leaving with what you would like to be doing, or leaving through your relationships with your family, or leaving through the support you've been providing to your spouse, your military spouse, your partner, to all of the people in your circles. You are absolutely leaving a legacy, and to be celebrating that, to be excited about that, and to be really intentional about what legacy it is that you're leaving. So the Empowered Women Circle is my passion and my purpose, and it's really been probably the last 6 years that I've come around to educating is my deep passion, and I was realizing that educating and really providing that level of credible, science-based, evidence-based health and wellness information that is also shared very widely in the Empowered Women Circle online. Sharing that information was not enough. The more important piece was being able to really get into women, to get into their journey with them, to find the places that women may be ready for igniting their potentials, and for providing the resources, the accountability, and the community so that women can do that. They can do that for themselves, and they can do that with each other. So really creating a space for women to feel included, that whole definition of included, and for them to express their unique gifts and talents in the world to ultimately leave that biggest legacy. So I think we have a little bit of time. Actually, we're exactly on the hour, but I know that if anybody, well, at this point, I'll close, but I will share that I'm happy to stick around and to have some voice contact to share some of your questions, some of your thoughts, as I'm hoping you had some inspirational thoughts come up for you. I would love to hear them. But if not, and you're ready to go back to work, or you're ready to go back to the tasks at hand in your busy, busy lives, I want at this moment to just extend my gratitude for your taking the time. I know your time is precious, for your taking the time to be with me here today. I absolutely send love to all of you, and I hope that you can go over to ewcircle.com and stay connected with me and stay connected with our community, and in doing so, provide a real sense of support, because what you're bringing into our circle has never been in our circle before. So come on over and help us lift the other women in the circle, and in doing so, hopefully provide some support and nurturing for your dreams as well.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, so that way if anybody has any personal questions, it won't be a part of the recording. If you need to leave, feel free to just close out your browser window. You will be receiving